I have a...
This is the Succession.
The Succession,
thing,
yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I just had a thought come to my mind. I'm going to give it to you here. So the Bills' candidates, Joe Brady, Brian Dable, Anthony Lynn, Anthony Weaver, Grant Udinski, expecting Clint Kubiak and Davis Webb. Did I forget anybody?
I think you got them all.
Okay.
You said Lou Anarumo?
Lou Anarumo. Him too. Do you remember when the Sabres had a vote for the new goal song?
Yes.
And everyone got really invested in it and did a bunch of stuff?
The one this past. Yeah.
And then what do?
They picked the song that nobody believes anyone actually voted for.
They picked
Kickstart My Heart.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm just saying that's what Joe Brady's going to feel like to me. If Joe Brady gets a job, it's going to feel like that. Like we're about to go outside and start fresh, start new. All ideas on the table. And if they give it to Joe Brady, like, all right, doesn't mean it can't be good. Just like, okay. I want to tell you something about Grant Udinski, who is a candidate for this job. The Bills have asked to talk with Grant Udinski. We're going to bring in Sal in a minute here. He's worked under Liam Cohen. He comes from the Kevin O'Connell tree to a degree.
Yeah.
He worked with Kevin O'Connell, and I just reached out to Matthew Collar in Minnesota to see if we can find out about Udinski. I think Kevin O'Connell is a top 5 coach in the NFL and would absolutely want a part of that. He is tight with O'Connell. He got a job, and O'Connell called his understanding of football unbelievable, continued to get promotions over and over and over. He was a mentor to, don't hold this against him, J.J. McCarthy, and then left before McCarthy would actually have played this year. Worked with Darnold. Was he there with Darnold when he broke out?
Yeah.
Okay.
Minnesota last year, he was assistant OC and assistant quarterbacks coach.
Okay. Udinski, to me, is immediately, I like that idea. I don't know if you have to be someone that's tight with Josh. I don't know how this is all going to work.
He's young.
He's 30.
I'm older than him.
All right. But I like the name. Davis Webb's going to be on the list. Sal Capaccio is on the line on the Western Hotline. He's down at One Bills Drive. Sal, good morning. One thing I think about all this is today's been a day of getting candidates to just roll out. We can expect a lengthy process here, right?
I think so. It would feel like it would be more of a longer process than a shorter process. I mean, they could identify their guy pretty quickly. One thing about that, though, guys, you have to remember, as much as that's probably the case, right now, lots of jobs are drying up. That's coordinators, too.
Yeah.
The longer you wait, the more guys are taking jobs with other coaches getting jobs, right? So if you want an offensive coordinator and guy comes in and does an interview and says, I really want this guy as my offensive coordinator, but then you wait, and then that guy goes somewhere else. So you can't wait too long here.
Here's the thing. I was kind of half kidding with this when I said this, but, Sal, the Bills could potentially hold up the entire hiring process here. If they've got a lot of candidates that are interested in the job, and, the irony is, of course, the Bills have wanted this process to move after the playoffs anyway, right? And it doesn't work that way. But if you are any one of these guys that's been named, and Brian Dable, the Eagles want him for their offensive coordinator job maybe. He says, well, hold on, I'm talking to Buffalo. I got to figure this out. Now, maybe they pare the list down over time, but if they're waiting to talk to Clint Kubiak or Chris Shula or Davis Webb,
yeah,
then that will have to wait until maybe after the Super Bowl if it goes that long. And that's what I mean, a long process here could play out unless teams, parties involved kind of get impatient.
Right. Well, the Bills have no say in what the Eagles would say then if they go to a Brian Dable and go, well, look, we need to wrap this up. We need to do this. So you got to make a decision. Either you wait around for that job or you come here. So I like I said, I mean, yeah, you're right in theory. I mean, I think this is a top job, right? You have a chance to come here and work with Josh Allen. Guys are lining up. They would love to be able to do that. But other teams aren't going to wait on the Buffalo Bills. They're going to say, if you don't come here, we're going to have to move on because we need to fill our spots.
Right. So you're down there. We're going to hear from Terry Pegula and Brandon Beane today. That's the plan. We don't know if Terry Pegula will be answering questions, but he will be there as part of today's presser.
That was what was on the email that was sent out. Terry Pegula and Brandon Beane, media availability at 10 a.m. So we'll see exactly what Terry says or doesn't say, and if he does or doesn't answer questions.
All right.
Do you have any expectations, Sal, of what
tone?
Yeah, the tone might be, whether that's on McDermott or whether that's in general about Beane and the way the roster is, because there have been a lot of back and forth, I think, this week on TV, radio, social media about what the state of the Bills roster is, and Beane at times in the past, even on our program, has been defensive about it.
Yeah, I think that Brandon Beane will probably strike a tone of, being, thankful for Sean McDermott, all the things that we talked about the last, 72 hours that they didn't seem to be, right? And there were, chilly has been the words or things like that. And I think that hey, Sean did a lot here, and we're thankful for everything he did. And, we're going to look under every stone possible to find the right coach. I don't think that Brandon Beane's going to come in here and be defiant against the media in this room today. You know what I mean? If that makes sense, I don't think that would serve him very well. But I think Brandon's always been very good in front of a mic. He's been polished. He can get a little fiery. You know that. You guys know that personally, right? But I don't think that today is a day that we're going to see a lot of that. Now, what's it going to look like when there are questions about that? And, the bottom line is when you do things like this, you want to have answers. What happened? Why did it happen? What does it look like going forward, right? I mean, that's the goal of a day like today, to get answers of what happened and why it happened and what it looks like going forward, the structure of the organization. That's going to be a big question today. What does it look like, now that Brandon Beane is the president of football ops as well as the GM? And I said the other day, and I think you guys were talking about this earlier when I was starting to hook up, I believe that he'll be the GM through the draft, and then they'll probably pass it off to Terrence Gray or Brian Gaine. But you keep him on through the draft because he's done all that intel with the scouting department for the draft, and he's even scouted guys. So that's just my personal belief. I think that'll probably happen at some point. So what does it look like, going into next year, now that he's overseeing kind of everything in that regard? So I think there's a lot of questions that have to be answered here about that. And then, of course, we're all going to be asking questions about what kind of coach are you looking for? Do you have certain qualities in mind that you need here? How much does Josh Allen have any say whatsoever in, what's happening here?
How about, have you spoken to Josh? Right? Sal, will we hear from the quarterback at any point after this news?
Yeah, I was going to ask you, because I know the GM and the coach, if you have a coach, are by the CBA, they're supposed to talk right after a season, but is the quarterback too, or is that optional?
No, I've never seen anything the quarterback has to talk. We've just always heard from Josh, and he's the face of the organization, really, right? So I don't know if we're going to hear from Josh at any point. We might not. At this point, with everything going on, it wouldn't surprise me if we don't. I think a lot of people were very surprised we didn't the other day, reading a lot into that. But I think at this point we get to, maybe that just doesn't happen. I'm not really sure. I wouldn't expect it today, but you never know, I guess. I don't even know, what Josh's, immediate offseason schedule looks like, where he is, what he's doing. But there is no requirement for the quarterback to speak to the media after the season.
Well, if that's the case, if we don't hear from him, I think what Beane would say today about, what Josh feels about the move from McDermott, or even what his role might have been. I mean, if that's all we kind of get on it, then that'll be a pretty big answer from Beane today.
For sure. And I don't know how much he would speak on what someone else felt about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
So I'm really not sure if he would even go down that road. But no, I don't know. At this point, we have no plans or have not been told anything about hearing from Josh.
All right.
The coaching list, Sal, I'm wondering, could we pick up tidbits from Beane, even outside of specific questions about, what he's looking for in a coach? Are we gonna be listening to how he saw this season end, and the playoffs specifically? I feel like there'll be a lot of listening to every single answer and almost applying them, even ones that maybe we shouldn't be, to what he's looking for in the next head coach.
So do you mean how this season ended maybe impacting the type of coach they want going forward?
Yeah, kind of. If he, talks about the Denver game and he's talking about not making stops at the end and not as much about the offense not scoring in overtime or touchdowns at the end, then I don't know, my antenna will be up about, okay, maybe some of these defensive names that they're going to be interviewing are realistic guys.
Oh, I think they're real. I don't think we should discount anybody on this list. I think what you're going to hear from Brandon Beane today, my guess is he's going to say, we're going to find the best coach possible. I don't care if he's an offensive guy or a defensive guy or a special teams guy. I don't think you're going to get anything today that's going to indicate either way if, a defensive guy is in the mix or ruled out, or offensive guy. Now, we could try to piece together things he says, about that, which to your point, Joe, like if he mentions, oh, they couldn't get a stop, but I don't think that immediately disqualifies or says to you it's got to be a defensive guy or an offensive guy. You're probably going to get what most coaches say in these situations. I'm sorry, most GMs and owners say in this situation. We're going to find the best coach possible. And look at the list so far. You have several names from the defensive side. You have several names from the offensive side. And and honestly, that's the way it should be. You should never, ever just limit yourself to that. Now, we could all have our preferences and say the Bills should go get an offensive mind because of Josh Allen and because of they've had this defensive coach. I totally get that. But I think it would be totally malpractice by any organization to not look at both sides of the ball to get the best person possible.
Sal, we'll check in after the press conference. You're going to jump back on with us. We'll give a little reaction, post-game takeaways, things we learned, things we might still be wondering. So we'll be listening. You've got us dialed up from down there. We'll talk afterwards.
You got it, guys. Thanks.
Thanks, Sal. Sal Capaccio. 803-0550 is the phone number, and 1-888-550-2550. The list still, to me, looks like three. There are three categories here for the most part. Veteran defensive guys. Mm-hmm. I guess we can't say the hot young offensive candidate list yet because that's Udinski, and we expect Webb and Kubiak to be on it. And then defensive veterans, Anarumo, Weaver.
Yeah. Would you also just include a list of guys we know?
Yeah, the relationships. That's what I meant by that.
Right.
The relationship guys.
Yeah, because Dable, Brady, and then eventually probably Davis Webb.
And the first two are, according to Diana Rossini, in-person interviews. Dable and Anarumo go first.
Yep.